To the teacher endowed, transcendent destroyer, one thus gone, foe destroyer, completely and fully awakened one, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, one gone to bliss, knower of the world, supreme God of beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, to the Buddha endowed, transcendent destroyer, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced 7 strides and said, I'm supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I bow. With pure bodies, form supremely fine, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, supreme guide, to you I bow. With the supreme signs, face like the spotless moon, color like gold, to you I bow. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not, incomparable wise one, to you I bow. Great compassionate protector, all-knowing teacher, field of merit and good qualities, vast as an ocean, to the Tathagata I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from the lower realms. Unique, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma that is beside bow. Having freed themselves, showing the path to freedom, too well established in the trainings. The holy field endowed with good qualities, to the Sangha. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through this merit may sentient beings attain the state of all seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from the ocean of cyclic existence, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn Mount Meru, 4 lands, sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you. May all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings.
This one.
This one.
Oh yeah, what is that? That's a little bit of test. What is that? July, oh, July. Then you didn't never send the cars. give it to do top by Kurubalas. Getting dealer pember Matuna, Chindi and then Juba Kala Guru, some good. Arajo, Tawaka, and Jorba Chusum, and military pay Kabura, Dells, Tandu Rabsilke de Yona, Miku were of Suzuki de Yona, Sanjay Temba Mesa de Zike de Yona, Sangordo, Churchuba, Sanjay, then come to but the Pecombora. Keba Mambo Cha Ji Tong Chigi or the Sanjay, then come to share the Pecombora. To make ever say, Tarin Kevan de Sanjay Shambara. Or the Indizako, certain again, young dog by sure. Tarba the Tamji Chamber to be certain against Sanjay, then come to Chamber to pay combat. Arazo military to combo. Oh, Taring as a church of a tell, church of a Tunji Kanga, Sawa come de la Songora, and Jun Denise, pay near cower, Maobana, Tendini cower, Songora, then Jun Denise, but Shindoka, oh. Keep it to do to by Jubal, Tataring as a Kibu Tanda, send the Chibutanda Mare, send it in military Kyongama, the troops are Tanda. So Kyongama take it so sa, and the military, Tenikanga military, so can't remember the Kyonga Milel, Tenichungura. Oh, Tindu Takyo Chima Penjet on Dasivara. Oh, Tiangaraja Kachi, Sociality Ganga, dying in some Sarashi. Target the Lud Mother Toy Megasol. And the Lud is led the Yoshima Mare some. The Samgua, Rajanata Luda Semidua. Some day, Colulia Tange Termato Luda Bell, Sherry to say Pungure de Omara. And a Tandra Celia, Lord Tempanashira. Some sort of trouble shall do, some sort of Samushire, some sort of Shukshire, or Condensa de Cable Tene. Dudua, Madoko Tardi, Lota Rede Omara, Dineshi Lulia, Cosemjitan de Ora. Aina Cotanda Tensigura, and Lug is Semjitan Majed. Eco Ludi letter, the Sem de Tramos, she says, and Roshagra. Or they do not know Kyoshima, you are said the Semde Tramos and Roshagora. Oh, Tini, this one that Tanju didn't give you to do start Kyoshima Panjan Donut, she met on that Keshabura. And she may have a Mikova Tobacheco Guyana. Ranga Church here turned out the social had a Mikova and she talked with some Guyana. Any Yoli that turned on my give a share. Dick I turned out Kudikagura. Shala Sawacheba, Shala Nova Sheba, so Cheva, so Lunga Yusum, the Shala Nova Sheba de Pana. And then yes, only teach you to the Pangiora. It's a disappointment, Toma Mevan and Sashaba. Oh, Tini, make you a letter to like give us a shark machina. And it gave us to the about to them, had a meat on that to Viora. Young around a million in a troop to grace and Gora, give you to look toward you balas. So set on that, so to gain the troops or the Sarama your days and Gora. Or give you to do to what you balas. What did Tiba to see Labna?
No. So here to begin with a verse by Shanti Deva from the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, he says that at this time when we have a body, a life of leisure and endowments, which is so difficult to find, if we don't use this for our advantage or for the benefit of beings, then how again will we have this in the future? Or what will we do in the future? So right now we have this opportunity. We are born with all of the kind of freedom, the leisure to be able to practice the Dharma, and we have the opportunity of the Dharma. If we were born in a really remote place or somewhere where we didn't have access to these teachings, we wouldn't have that kind of freedom. Or if we didn't have the intellectual capability to be able to understand these teachings, we couldn't make use of that. And if we were born in an eon, in a time when the Buddha's teachings didn't appear, we are not going to be able to practice the Dharma. There are many eons, many times when we don't have the kind of teachings of a Buddha, the teachings that lead us to be able to attain a liberation and higher rebirths. So at this time, we have a human rebirth, and we have done done everything in the past so that we are able to have such a life. We've already sort of accomplished those causes. They have come to fruition. But now we're talking about the future. So there are some people who might think that the self is just about our body, our physical body. And at this time during the life, they're sort of going to be preoccupied with that. But when it comes to our future rebirths, although our life doesn't go on, our mind is going to continue. That mind is like dependent upon our body. There's a sort of a relationship of mutual dependency. There's sort of a way in which there's a capacity for change. So like when we have something that's subjected to heat, it gets hot, it's subjected to cold, it gets cold. In that way, there's sort of a relationship of dependence, but the mind is going to continue on past this life, particularly the subtle mind. And so we have to think about that future. Where will we be born? If we want to have this kind of life as a human, as a God, where we are able to continue to practice the Dharma, we need to create the causes right now while we have the kind of opportunity. And that means eliminating those sorts of causes for the negative rebirths in the hell realms and as a hungry ghost, by abandoning things like harming others, by abandoning the 10 non-virtues, and also thinking about those kinds of negativities that we have accumulated since beginningless time and trying to confess and purify those. And if we do that, we are able to accomplish the aims of beings. We are able to make this life meaningful. So right now we have all of the kinds of conditions available to us. We're sort of right on the verge. We are able to do this. And this is something that is within our capacity. So we should make the best use of it.
Oh yeah, this one.
This one.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, the church to be the carrot on the church you how called. Mangcha the sendit on that of the church we were sort of some good. The sendelico church in it, send it on that echo. Sholan Rugiro, sometimes you send it on that Rubecheto, sometimes you made a it was a sometimes you are Chima Penjet on that church from the sometimes good mother said it on that church to a mother. Diana Chima Penjet on that church to be in it, and it's Sonam Saguarwa. Sonam Sana sent it on that Rubalaya Pangirwa. Sonam Dembe me Sambanam Yadru Sherwa. What do you do? Tambu to it, you are Chimaka, the Sambuchi language, some million bush toko, some Tambu territory. Or did Tobalia, did Tobjig Judy Togura, Kawangamba Pang, Judy Pang, Kawasambu Tobiaku. Young I use some Yukon and Migi was Judy Pang, Kawachu the Chinu to Nani, Sadami, Kawatoweta Shudua. This on the call, Kanji Rawan Juji turn about some good Oma Jubakaso. Chima Kara Kavadrum had Kara Rawan or the Sungudua. Oh, T doesn't quote social like why you were the Hako Gudua. Social with Judy Pan, the Sonki Judy Pan, Kiwatu, had a military Judy Trumnaco, social Rawan Yorwa. What do you do? Kanji Rawan Juji and turn about Sarah. Tangi Dag and going days, Sanja Sungudua. Social going to the social check with the social less Sambusana, Kawasambu and good, Lang and Basana, young and Bayungura, or Tico. Give it to do Toba Jubala. That on that I would be conducted this one. That on that never did it. Or had a military now, called had a military, I would have ring, yes, only 30. In a had a military, a bunch of Tomney. And then had a military Tunga or a tip, Tungele tendo tarbachi go something. Give one drink some of the Kodoa. Military can say Tunga or a nick or Tonga Bevana Tunga de Yora. And then Mambana too, Tunga there, Redora, covering Yawaki, Daki, Tandul Kikawaki, and Tende Kayomara. Or to some time design, Tungele tend to tare to Yana Menasam. Tungele tend to tare to Yanasam, social Rawanchan. And do Rawan to do Rawan changing to the Rawan Sigara. Only Rawan the Tarbatos and Rawan de Dora. In the society, Rawan by Keguma, Rawan by Chigumare, Kadu in the Lobo, Sobo in a Seru de Pumbu member, Yulu Karalan Lanchitesi to Tendo Tewa Tarba to Gura. Then you did Tarba, Koya Dungele Tarba Chidra, or did and then some time Karatangos Chatan Setera, Nanzo se, Conzo se, Chagdang, Samutani, Chichil, never Chedoa. And a thousand Zimba se, Tangipa, and the Tombani se, Midawa Chamo se, to the Comgora. Tarwa Top going in Yibatelia. Any metawa Chamota, Dame Bata, Garazu, Mina, Chisolia, Chagdan, Yiri, Chagdan, Mevata, Yamopaya Tapshisha, Tichi Lamna, Tadani better, Tandu better, Tarba Tavechido.
So, in terms of why we are practicing Dharma, Dharma really is about thinking about our future lives. We shouldn't be doing it with the sort of aims to accomplish the aims of this life, the sort of things that we want. If we really are practicing with the kind of aim to gain a good rebirth as a human or a god, then we don't have to think about the sort of aims of this life. They'll happen by the way. We will get those sorts of things along the way because we're accomplishing merit. Someone who is accomplishing merit is creating the kind of causes for positive sorts of things to happen. But if we want to, the sort of first way, in like this verse from Shantideva says, that we accomplish the aims of beings is thinking about our own future rebirth and recognizing that right now we want to take advantage of this life that we have. And if we want to gain a good rebirth like it in the future, we need to think about the causes that we are accumulating. If we accomplish virtuous actions and abandon non-virtuous actions, we are guaranteed, we are able to gain a good rebirth in the future. So again, as similar to this verse in Shantideva, Chandrakirti has said in his entry to the middle way, that like at this time where we have all of the freedom, all of the autonomy to be able to accomplish our aims, if we fail to take advantage of it, then falling into the abyss of the lower realms, what will we do? So right now we have this kind of freedom. We have this autonomy. Again, as the Buddha himself has said, you are your own master. You have the ability to create the causes for what you will experience in the future. If you create good causes, you are going to take a good rebirth. If you create negative causes, you're going to take a bad rebirth. So going beyond just that first sort of thought of accomplishing a good rebirth in the future, there's thinking that, well, even so long as I continue to take rebirth, even if it is as a human or a god, I'm still subjected to suffering, the sufferings of birth, aging, sickness, death, continuously having to take rebirth without any kind of certainty in this cycle. And so there's a desire then to definitely get free from that. And so when we are talking about having this sort of autonomy or freedom in this rebirth, usually when we as humans use that word, we're using the word freedom in terms of very small little things. But the freedom that we have right now is the freedom to be able to create the causes for liberation, for actually getting out of samsara. We have that kind of freedom, that ability right now. And so when we get to this level of thinking, we are recognizing the kind of defects of attachment and aversion, the sort of desire and hatred, as well as the kind of self-grasping that it arises from, recognizing the faults that come from that. And one gets into the contemplations on things like subtle impermanence and selflessness, and recognizing that all things that flow out of that kind of grasping at a self and cause us to have attachment and aversion are going to create the causes for future rebirth. So this kind of putting effort at the causes of liberation is the second sort of level of making or accomplishing the aims of beings.
Oh yeah. Give you ten to what you balance that, so you tend to anybody to don't let them to Tarbashiku, Samra. So Rawa Meba, Nyawali Kido and Tundul Kido and Milikido and Karishi, Pumbukadu, Dorgun, attend them Mabastua, Kiganashu, Teletarashiku, Yesam, Teletarashido, and Chatampa, Metawachamutan, Tombani Cometa, Yuda, give it on the Nibadi Doa, Nibadi Tarba Doa, Tungeli Tendo Tarbate. Dito dal church we are. Oh, you teach it.
So,
somebody that Chambodera, Kibu Chimbit and Dasgra, or that's also Chibu. Quiet Dungele Tarwa, some Digmedo, some Tangone, some Lokoda, Rachibu, Quiet Dungele Tarwa, Digmare, some social send the Pada Mata Nido, as was as I in Andra, Pubutu in Andra, social Kare, Sacha, Yeva Hinaya, Dinashi, Yoangamala Yoresam. Dingamala Yorsang, and the Toma Yomara. So what you do, the same between the course and nature and do Jangaman de Yora. Chitanagara, Zabulingi, Nejin, Dangi, Twitter to call Namane Yora, Chigasin, Jurgen, do, Yonde Yora, Mato, Ngama mebachi yomarwa, Kingama Chiore, Tingama Tingama Chiora, Tiki Dusundodegua, Aranzo Semde Tagana Shira, Ludi Kotan the Savaki, Semde Kokianga Madisian, Jurgen Duyorno, or T doesn't Kokiol Toma Yomare. Ti medu sosu sendile sosu kare le cheba yona tina shin majurwe simje kyawanga ma pada mada danga zu pate pama tsoche ora mate tsoche yora kadin shishu sumza tisi yora kashali ya pate mashida ten meba dinde yora tinde ne pada dinde kadin shimbu sorgu yona ya ashan da yona roban da yona su te shishu cheba chungu ne tina shin majurwe simje mesam ni tu da randa jawa mebe Simje me samje simje tamje soso chende pame chombe simje sangma dhane tungele tharba che ku ure sam soso chibu dungele thana samna marab re samje kibu chembe samro samlo chembu khogyara kibu chembe chesigdwa oti indu zange tende chego sam tende chewala tanda soso neba ke yo mara tanda soso kan che thudu di chijur ma do shira be dungele tawa chida soso dungele khode che thugu marwa 당에 껴와네 칼에 껴서 산제 좀 된데 따부치 그 강가빵 연된 강가 톱 시럽이 랑도게 내 탐제 탈심 버케 상부 탈심 버체 텐데징한 주라치기 삼 산제지 고반데 내 토바치기사 껴와네 규네 칼에 껴진게 토바치기사 심제 강게 던다 툭툭된게 네 상부다 신이가 연계치기 삼 Sanjay Koban Toba Chigi Sambesidwa, Hotel Kibu Chamber Simsigora. Namjunga Janjuba Tani Capsule Chinso given the Dajan Dollar Panji Sanjay and Dubar Show Sigua. Sanjay Koban Toba shows the Sun of the Kanga Sangbal Sigora, Pegana Chana. Yes, you say that Tambela Ludo Gabal Sigora. Sangbuta Shane the Tarshibukora, so Sangbu Tarshimbache. Shen Tarshibachan and mission out on the Tutura. O Titan Kibu Chimbu Sambusagua. Kibu Tundutoba Jubala said the Kibu Chimbu Sambrute Tamaterwa, or Tiangazo Molam Japton Young shows and Molam Jagurwa, and then Namsanda Tugumari. And to the Indian donation, ABC Labi and Naximape, Kavashibaji, some Koya do what under there. Oh, Tandanga Chima Kavashibachi, some Tandako Yigi, Abbey, Shingi, or Marte, some Kodi do Artinas, and using Busamutane, and they show some look in any give Chimbut and Dr. Guada. Oh, teacher loved ya.
So that second level of thinking is wanting a kind of definite freedom. If one is going to continue to take rebirth in samsara, going up and down and experiencing various sufferings, that's really not a kind of freedom. Just attaining higher rebirths doesn't guarantee any kind of lasting happiness. So at this level, one thinks about things like subtle impermanence and emptiness and the kind of defects of our being attached to some and having aversion towards others and so forth, and tries to get rid of that kind of attachment and aversion for one's own liberation. But at the next level of, again, accomplishing the aims of beings, and here this is the line from Shantideva, we get to the level of thinking of a being of great capacity, wherein we recognize that just our own freedom alone from these sufferings is not really sufficient. It's not really right, because all of these various beings that we are surrounded with have acted in the capacity of like our mother, our father, our friends, our relatives, our children, people that we feel close with. So although we talk about they're going through life after life, there are lives we sort of we end a particular life. That mind continues on, changing and changing, taking up various bodies and lives. There's nothing that is like newly created. When we talk about physical matter, like going through transformations, there's not something that's newly created. And so too with beings, although they sort of take up one form and cast it off, there is a continuity of mind. And when we look that there is no beginning to that, we have taken taken then countless rebirths and thereby have had relationships with all of these various beings. So thinking about them in this sort of kind and affectionate way. And normally we talk mainly about our mother or our father, concentrating on their kindness. But if we don't have an especially close relationship with our mother, we could say, think about our father, or think about our uncle, or think about a very close friend, someone that we do feel that sort of affection, and recognize that there's not one single being that hasn't acted in that capacity. And so just striving for one's own freedom while leaving those beings suffering is not right. We then give rise to this wish to be able to free other sentient beings from their sufferings. And so right now, in our current capacity, we aren't really able to do much to free others, but we can make this as like a long-term goal, saying, I want to attain Buddhahood, and I'm going to work toward that life after life by developing these various kinds of practices, acting in the way that a Buddha did until I myself become a Buddha. It become one who has removed all faults and developed all good qualities to their highest, one who is able then to affect the benefit of sentient beings to the highest capacity. So this is what we call the sort of Mahayana attitude, the attitude of a being of great capacity, of wanting to attain this state. And again, it doesn't really come through in our English. We go back to the Sanskrit, this term Buddha, we could say awakened one. Those syllables, really, the sang refers to dispelling all sorts of faults, removing all kinds of obscurations. And the last syllable ge refers to the expansion, the development completely of all knowledge. And so it is with those qualities of having just gotten rid of all of those kinds of faults and developed all qualities that one is able to really benefit sentient beings. So we make prayers, we make the kind of aspiration to do this, but it's not something that we can do immediately. Like if we are, say, learning the letters, we might have this thought, oh, I want to become a great scholar, but you're not going to be a great scholar tomorrow. You need to first learn the alphabet and learn how to read. And so like that, we make this kind of aspiration to become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings, but recognize that this is a process, that it takes time, lifetime after lifetime.
Oh yeah, they do 당한 저 거진에 마부시에라. 당부 시주서를 그네 주고도서나 소방고래에서 미소 심지어 그들은 소제주요 말에 뭐좀발린주요 말에서 뭐좀 로임셔라. 용아이스고 미기와 주요와 어때서 샹라 소방고래에서도 샹라 너버셔네 샹라 동해 연구래에서 요라. 사다도나 시마레서 라나 시대완들 동해 메드가 샤지레에서 ni shengi so shena kol tunghe yongurese so kyobna kol tewa yongurese tunghe da trende da tewa da trende ge samlo ni de shi suksa de chamba da ningji sigdo atela chamba da ningji sigra ningji suri phajo de to guma chuna samgora to bu chuna de mare samgora chamba suri phajo de yagbo chuna tewa chuna kiba chuna samdole chamba sigdo a so tambu chhengo suksa de 샹라 소주발라 소바 미기와 차방고데 차와전에 샹라 누그데스 라와 아니 소주발라 소바 샹라 샹라 팽게데스 샹라 대와용고데스 파조데 사토나 시삼루타지요 마르스 소스나 신테완돌레 동에 멘데바데스 오 디삼루타네니 기부충이 쳐데 용고도와 네 아니 처르처르네 심제 탐제세로 동에데 트레너스 심제 탐제 대와던 데버스 기부첨보데 요데 아니 심지어 탐제가 삼을때 연구도 와. 대연대장 아주 시주사 최대. 샹라 너바파 샹라 파바투에 이 자체로 처다네. 아니 샹뱅 삼을 때 탈심버요야. 샹라 파바투에게 시럽 탈심버요야. 뒤ton달 최체기도 와. 라시 시럽 탈심바. 상부 탈심바. 뒤 상으로 타야 뒤ton달 최체기도 와. 기부 총의나 뒤에도 와. 기본적이나 착당방고를 색도와 아주 건조세 착당방고를 참마대와 돌을 동금집발을 색도와 근데 저와다 잠바시거라 기부 첨부이나데 텔레자 심지 탐제 타두 땐도 때와 동헬에 타르바시고를 땐도 타르바토바시고를 뒤ton달 배긴 삼고도와 어디에 대한 가지고 최의 시쪽사때 잠바다 자와세 tin의 것도와 소수나 밀에 자와나 대한 것조사때 소수낭미다 년제 남주 저요 선내 것조 그리 sonsoa 어디실랍나야
So, the root, the basis for the practice of Dharma is really this most basic practice of abandoning harming others. We give up things like killing and stealing and sexual misconduct and so forth, because we recognize that when we do harmful things to others, they actually experience suffering. There's a recognition that other beings are not like rocks and trees or inanimate objects, but when we cause a harm, when we kill somebody, it is extremely painful. It's an experience of suffering. And when we say protect life, they experience happiness. So this is the fundamental root or basis, is recognizing that other sentient beings feel happiness and feel suffering, and wishing to avoid causing any sort of action, any kind of harm that would create suffering for others. And so this is really about having a sense of love and compassion for other sentient beings, that when we harm others, we know that it will create suffering. And so we try to stop from doing that. And we try to protect life and say, do virtuous actions, recognizing that this will bring other beings happiness. And so this is what leads into the kind of practice of a being of small capacity, of watching one's karma on the basis of recognizing that harm creates suffering and so forth. And then we get to sort of the being of middling capacity, wherein one again is recognizing that all sentient beings have those kinds of feelings of suffering and happiness, and wishing and not sort of distinguishing between them. There's also in that level of teachings on love and compassion. And then when one gets to the highest level, the Mahayana, and the sort of being of great capacity, one is expanding that out completely to try to benefit beings as fully as possible, based upon removing one's own faults and expanding one's wisdom and intelligence to be able to most fully benefit sentient beings, wishing to achieve for them or to place them in the highest state of definite happiness. And so again, this is something where the foundation of all of these practices of Dharma is based upon that very basic instinct of feeling love and compassion toward other sentient beings, the kind of love and compassion we feel toward our family, and recognizing that equally for all beings, and on the basis of that, taking up these various practices.
Oh yeah, how did it? Oh, they do take us over it. Oh, that's it. Our didn't do. Oh, didn't the Kashyapa, me mamma chew mess and gave over. Take a rest, Chidan Chedico, Kunjo, Kanga Service, Tawa, Dome, Sama Kunjo, Gandango, Chebabu Kunjo, Kashe, Yawando, Kashe, Ida, Kashe, Melodro, the Zuda Kanga, you had the Kunjo Service at the Mansha, Chulu Yordo. So that in the came Melenga Gudwa. Kanga say, you know, Yagasha Soda, Toga Sugumaroane, Kanga Wanja, and the Yagasha, Yota, Kanga Son, Karishoda, Yaga Kanga Session, the Basset, Yogi. Tamje Cheba Bojo Sola never you get your mother, Tende never you get you another Kanga Yaga Sugar Mado, Doga Sumado, or Tindes a coat and del ten show your mother and get you doa. In Nambaga, take killing your mother, and Jane Cheba was some Kunjo service to Marese. So which I would ask you. Sanjay Sungudoa. Sibe Sungu Church, Lamani Kija Namla Dance. Siba Koa get sent it and Kawachimata, Tando, and it to me, Church. Tapping a shingle, Yamson on the Kendall share years on Gudua. Sibe Sungu Church, Sungu to Mel Segra. Teacher by Chiba Lamde trading a Kendall share years on Goda. Sibe Sungu Church, Lamani Kija Namla Dance. The Shinshik Batumba days, a Sanjay Jidani compared. Koranga Yamu de Kendall Shega yon by Insungura. Or taking his Timadonga Lagache yon Martase. I can't say chair with a social chair with a social less and a social jabun young with a social land Nabasan and Jabun Yamba, less Sambus and Jabusambo young with this song doa. Or tea do consider Shababu killing you, mother. Tangi Tago going the Shannon Susan going to your song doa Sajak. Social Gunjab the social chair with a Mancha toast the make Robert chair and good mother, Chandela Tarava. Social Yabos and social Yabo Gura, Kale social Yabura. Said Tangi Tago going the social Gangi the social Yabo, and Tabji social chair with soda. Tangi Tago going the Shannon Susan going to use. Social Yabo led down sit in the Yabo Mazi, 2 months and the Shandaj, Shan and Yabo Yomara. Shannon Sushin going to do Shanchi, Shanda, Gunjap, Keraka, Machane, Yawal, Tuga, Tantanda, Yoma, Sungura. Tinachi, Babu, Yuvaka, Shannon Sushin going to do. Later, Neba Chevala, Tangi, Tag, Pambu, so Pambu Chevres, Wanga, Les, and Butchig, Symbian Chaching, my Pambachi, Tangi led to Jachig to us, so Hako, so Pambu, so kidding it, let them go to Esse. Shall Pembele Karina Sarta, shall never Karina in Urta, or Tiso Hakovache, Society Pambuche, Sosolia, Taxi with a Sungua. Sibes on which again Kajanam that teaches about them, but Kajanam the Chaco so good, or they in the co. Today, Nambake, the woman, the one you Shebabo said, Church in the Tenaco, Shebabo Kell and get to the Tenaco, Maggie, so do some Koyora. Nastics the cake mess and get Kujo mess and get Shibabo mess and get cigarette, Gagalina. Niba the type Kawangachi mess, Kawangachi meva did not be killing Marwa. This somebody, the leggy or somebody do your marriage. Tanda Kawangachi mess and get Tanda Soso Sopo de Tabes, Michi or a tea and a chamber Kawandu. She do Soponi tell later to and then don't get me do some you saw wallet in the middle shagora. I just in a soak down some near your essay. So what later the Koran day later the same between the dogre. Simply so Jemma, the Pama Kuta Trova Mare. So my get teletens and get your or take you into Dogora. Or take this uncle Chimayova number Kellingra. Didn't you watch my pencil yabu and that shirt you go. Kawachima Malina, Cochamba, Gugdwa, Kimzanta now Cochamba, the Sawa Koda, Chabata Sawa, Yanekibira, Ishanda Michizona to the Cochamba, the Church, less on watching ever Marchana, and the Gudwa, Tremana, Gugdwa. Or teach you them Manduchas, we are do that.
No. So the root of Dharma, as I've said, as I've explained here for Buddhism, is really this fundamental recognition that others experience suffering and happiness from the various ways that we sort of treat them. And so there are some people who would say, and it gets a little bit confusing here with the word Dharma, I don't usually translate that as religion, who would say that, like, I'm not religious, in the sense that their understanding of what it means to be religious is accepting some kind of a creator, as many religions do, some sort of omnipotent deity or creator that creates all of the world. And then these sorts of questions arise, like, well, if this is an omnipotent creator, why would they create things that are bad or create suffering? If they have the power, why would they not just create everything good? And so there are those types that sort of push away from religion or say that they're not religious because they think it entails accepting some kind of a creator. Whereas the Buddhist would say there is no such creator. We can't accept any kind of omnipotent kind of a figure that created the world and has that sort of power over it. But rather, as the Buddha himself has said, I'm teaching you the path that cuts this continuum of misery, that cuts the continuum of samsara. I came to teach you, but you are going to have to do it for yourself. So again, as we were saying before, the Buddha has said, you are your own master, and you can't sort of do this for anyone else. The Buddha came and taught us the kind of process of samsara, how certain causes will lead to certain results. And we ourselves have to actually make the effort. We have to put in the time and the effort. There is no one else who can do it for you. No one else can sort of be your master, nor can anyone else give you their results of actions. You have to make the effort. You have to do the action. And so we can't give away our results, but rather we experience the results that we create. And so this too is, the verse continues by saying that you too are your own witness. We are witness to what it is that we have done that is a positive action and what we have done that are negative actions. And it is on us to sort of examine if what we are doing is beneficial to others or harmful to others, and make the kind of effort to do less that is harmful, to do more that is sort of positive. And so there are those who might say they are like agnostic, or that they don't really believe in religion, but they actually could maybe see things as Buddhists do. There's not anything in Buddhism that says there needs to be a creator, kind of a god or creator figure, but rather we are really our own masters and creators in terms of causes. And then there are those who might like say they're not religious because they don't accept past and future life. They would say that, well, but there's nothing that we can point to beyond this life. Once this life ends, they don't see there being any sort of continuity. But Buddhists would say that our mind is not material. It's not going to be cut off in the way that our material body is, but rather the mind continues on. And based upon that kind of fact, we can posit the existence of past and future lives. But even for those who might stay away from the idea that there are past and future lives, they are needing of love and compassion in the way that all beings are. And so the kinds of teachings on cause and effect, even looking just within this life, those kinds of teachings advocating for love and compassion that are things that we all need can be beneficial in this way.
Oh, yeah, I did it. Oh, didn't do it. Oh, the end of that, and I got church to don't go to then they say, somebody, how could education would do? Or the end is a got tambu de. Joachima had a milky and a solemn make it and Dalia, Charlotte saw upon Chindy Pember to get tambure de toa. Saw upon Bayina, Chendile saw upon Joan Romanum to church, Mabules or Tazuri Shagbache. And it's Chendile kind saw upon Nimanima ready Samutan, Namachebe, Tibble and Jovache. She may say some Samutana, and it table mambo tado, and it Joachima had me go on to a tashudoa. So se chene chendoa, tambutira. Oti de tangi Charlotte Soapa, Toma Mebane Sashebe, Charlotte Soachebe letters on Gesimche, Roa. Oh, Tedesini, Joanne, Joa Mambo, then Juji Milu, Church and Gengi, then Cabbage and Tobachi in some. And it then the Milutan High Lu Tobachibu Maimba, then donated on Shinchere, Jaganashila Sobetunga. Then it coy dongele. Rala Rawan meba kichi chekwe tungetile tendo tarwa chi chekwe sam. O tieton dalia ane chagdan pa tangjin sera. Nga se ane nga se nga zo se konzo se ni chagdan ge le sa je ko de yora. O tende ta nga zo konzo meba che simje samman tamje nga zo se tena chugura. Dawan dole tunge medebe simje nga zo samma. Tungele targore dawa topgore samja tende samlo ko mado. Nirin chakdang simjen le rus chen leng bosaya te meba sogudwa ti chen ne tarbe chul dugdwa ni batira te toba chigi sam te rachi bu tarba toba samai ba simje thamje phama jube simje thamje tarba toba chagi sam te che thumgen ge kansa ji chigi sam kyawa ne kyawa kale kyapche kyo kun se yende kunden ge sanje shenge ton tarchen ba tu thumgen ge ne kansa ji chigi sam. Teacher doing it, teacher, and some cool set on December shoes. Oh, degree.
So generally, having knowledge, understanding this kind of introduction to Dharma is important. This kind of understanding that it is based upon our actions, based upon abandoning harming others and accomplishing positive actions, that we are able to take rebirth as a human or a god. If we are wanting to have such a good rebirth in the future, we need to recognize that we should abandon any kind of actions that will lead to negative consequences, as well as the fact that in previous lives we have accumulated the kinds of actions of harming others, and feeling a sense of regret from that, we are able to really purify those negative actions. So this kind of thought motivated thinking, I want to gain a good rebirth in order to be able in the future, in order to be able to do that, I need to create the causes now, use this time to abandon causing harm to others, and try try to do things that are beneficial and think, I want to gain this kind of a good, well-endowed human rebirth in the future. But then going beyond that, we see, well, even if one is to get this kind of rebirth in the future, that's still subject to suffering. Rather, if it would be better if we could have a kind of definite freedom from this cycle of taking rebirth. And in order to do that, we need to get rid of this thought of I, this strong grasping at a self and the kind of attachment to I and mine and aversion toward other that arises out of that causes us to then create the karma to be reborn in samsara. We need to get rid of this kind of dividing up into self and others. We should really see that we're all in the category of us, the us that wants to have happiness and doesn't want to suffer. And in that way, we strive to eliminate those kinds of minds and create the causes for freedom from this cycle of suffering. But then we recognize, well, not just my own freedom is not sufficient, but rather I want to be able to benefit all of these other sentient beings. And for that purpose, I need to attain the state of Buddhahood, the state that in which one is able to really work for the aims of others in a complete way, a state in which one has eliminated all faults and gained all good qualities, developed them completely. And in that way, one sets a motivation for listening to the Dharma. So we should take that kind of advice and set a proper motivation for listening to these teachings.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh,当就开始写菜的，就写啥算？刚才咱们的研究啥的吧？去给咱们的写算，去给咱们是的碰不了少吧？你去这就当妈妈就把这吧，去给咱们写，你这里啊，去给咱们写的了，你研究这个我们让给吧了，这里查查是你起来的他要嘛的是。我们刚刚去了那时候用的嘛的，到这个就什么的，说是把些晒多的，炸弹年的、牙个的，多都是到处说是什么的把些晒呗，打当了啥那个的是去了讲嘛的是，去了就要嘛的是这些说，去了就有点不没把难行，那哪个什么的啊，点不要嘛的是，什么点不没把些说，哦，真的该说的。September में बसे तो नहीं September में बतोंगे कि शिमला सब और तेज़ो September में मारे से तेज़ो कहाँ में बताएं सोआ शिमला सब बच्चों सामा थमजे यानी नंगजू नशी रांले नाव नशी तंगले नहीं यो मारे से जुम्मत समझे तो बरे जुम्मत दाबुरे से जुम्मत कहेंगे तो उसे ताला तो चुरी जाको ताला तो ना या ताला यो मारवा उन्हें ले चुप यो मारवा चेगा सिने उन्हें चाव चंगे राग मार दो Oh, tinasi, seme chiru to me ba. Ne debe sembia me, maombe sembia me, tadanjo sembia me se o to the kanga semli chan so so. Oh, ya teach lam na.
So as for where we had left off in the text, we had earlier gone through the selflessness of the person and then had moved on to the selflessness of phenomena, getting to how phenomena as well, like the aggregates and so forth, are not truly existent. And so here, this part of this is kind of according to the Yogacara Svatantrika Madhyamaka mindset, where they, or the point of view, where they are saying that there is no external existence, truly existent external reality, because what appears as external objects are really due to the force of the ripening of imprints on the consciousness, that they appear to exist in that way. So we had talked about the sort of examining those objects and seeing, and again, that is particular to that Yogacara Svatantrika Madhyamaka perspective, to say that there would be no external kind of objects aside from the sort of awakening of imprints on the mental consciousness. And here, then one, in the way we turn from that to in the text where it says, from the Heap of Jewels Sutra, when Kashyapa, when the mind is thoroughly sought, it cannot be found. What is not found cannot be perceived, and what is not perceived is neither past nor future nor present. So mind too, although it appears as though it had some kind of true existence, is not existent in the way that it appears. So in the way that like a magician might conjure up horses and elephants, they appear as being like real horses and elephants, but are in fact false, are just sort of illusions conjured up. Okay, 거기 민와. Okay, this. Oh yeah, ta. Yeah, 단다 고소.
야, 어디서? 당한도 가서 동반이 꼴이야. 강사 담에도 저기 담에 좀 뭐셔 살아. 다 지들에다 다 되면 뭐셔 살인 봐. 다들 가셔 대시에 고기를 삼줘. 다 지단 된대요래. 가지 동반이 셔트 저 요마를 시식도 야치 요를 시식도 세 대도도 중심에 깔에 가부치기였어. 저 담버 요마레스 라원도 주바 요마레스 땡제 드버 저 잠도 요레스 티셰요라 동반이 셔드. 그래서 달을 셔사린 방가서 담부 달을 셔봐. 어디내시 최 탐제래. 최 탐제고 다수 되잖아. 마부지 교진 차셰서 오라. 차셰다 닥시 코라 마인겐게 닥시다 차셰로 지 마부지 초. 아니 텔 때네 lö파 디치지 인세 타녀레를 따요라. 땡지 레버 종아 강스 때네 동반이도 셰 송구도 뭐물로도 차시값어. 땡지 레버 종아가 코라 마인게 차셰르버 닥시르 철시르 지 마부지 초. 텔 때네 니 디치 토네 lö파 디 봄바르다 디 강바르다 디 따르다 디 발라르다 스파르 따요라. 타녀지 왕게 샤기도 똑배 왕게 파샤기도 대참을 샤고를 했으거라. 땡진 레버를 종아세 닥실라 땡신 대단 레네 lö파 디치지 인스파 따기요레스 대딱바 참 제가 딱고 인다 조르 디 발라르 디 강바르 디 트시레스 디 따가 조르 똑배 딱섬 쓰기도 똑배 딱바 참 다갈 샤고를 이만 있어야돼. 텔레 대바시야 카르 똑배 따서 말 가반도시야치 라원도 주바지 코랑은 내가 대여도세 간사르진데 딩게 소보레 딩게 셈브레 딩게 소아르가 디마르가 대여스 로가치수 문진시에 거르와틴데 요마르와 어딘데 최상마다 그래 시흥거부터 텐시나다 카레나다 로이나다 코랑 마인게 카셰지 규진 카셰촌데 텔레테네 발로치 따샤 그래 다가 이마이 타 최사래 뒤침바셔고래 딘득바셔고래 다가 차샤주래 딜레 똑베 따섬 세고래 타녀 요왕기 샤과 세고래 저와 샹라 라글레뱅오 세고래 다 라글레뱅오 때 마인게지 단다 가서 연나요래 소소 삼려나랴 나 삼지 타녀 딱바서 마인바 풍불을 때는 강아랑 지요 삼기도 다나시 예도 왕치나다 예도 모이나 다이나다 니나다 뭐 강가로 코라나네 수 코란고네 수 배로가지 째는 째 여바니 여버신 두삼교와래 어딘데 요마레 송교와라 딘데 여반 점바되게 차단된 요모 마부지교와노 어디 요모 시에 단달이야 아니 라완도 주바 요마레 스테이지 데버 종아칸 테네 동반이도 셰스기도 코라 마인게 마부지 수초 텔레테네 르네 파타 대참레스 땡진 데버 종아레서라 텔레 동반이 세레 가레 동바라 라완도 주베 동바 랑위네 동바 랑신기 주베 동바 던담바 동바 시고라 테네 동반이도 셰스 타나 메르베스나 테네 멘도아스나 남중아주 삼대가 강아세 라완치 삼구티 멘도아서 데요마레 다 메르베스 오요레세 테네 테네 딱바데 테니 오메라미노서 풍불라 테네 나 대화용구도 대부유 기부유 나 대부면도 내 레사기스 뜻샤고레스 땡지 대바주 된 동바 테네 테네 딱바데 테니 오메라미노 테네 딱바 참로 코 예베 고쳐래 내가 지금 와래 대화용구 와래 동행용구 와래 레 개와사기 와래 메개와사기 와라 Ten talk about the Tin Ume Laminus, Uma Sitire. Rawando Truba Namjuk and some dege, Rawani Truba Tia, you are my race, touching. And the mad was a mad by my race and method bus and then you never join some choice and get your race. Or Tisha Yora. There's another Kiabashita, some of the Tamatuna, Chua Kadeshi in a co, Koran Mainge Mambuji saw. This was some China and Mipa, Tanya than Dichi in race for Lupata. Tagana ko Yindan over the mother, Dako Takbe Tanda the Kadiras, say a man some Titlong by some Shagura. Your teacher Lamna, because Mambu Lamni, Mambu's Lamni, because you yesterday, don't buy mass a young yard. Get true here, you can do a Mambu this or Tombani, how could I do some good? I'll let you Lamna.
So here we have gone through in talking about emptiness and in explaining these various kinds of reasonings, like going through the sort of fourfold analysis, or if something is the same and different, and the fivefold analysis and the sevenfold analysis. And so there is a sort of danger of falling into this thinking of like, not coming to the proper kind of understanding. Thinking when we're explaining emptiness, it could sort of feel like, well, are we saying that there's nothing whatsoever? We talk about things not being ultimately existent, that like our aggregates and so forth, the self and the person don't have any sort of ultimate or inherent existence. And so here it's important to kind of get back to the understanding, as it's explained in many verses, but as Nagarjuna says, that whatever is dependently originated, that is explained as emptiness. So here it is, when we talk about the sort of way in which things exist, there is the coming together, the sort of accumulation of causes and conditions that are not that actual thing, but there's coming together. And due to that, there arises a basis of designation. And on the basis of designation, our mind puts a convention, puts a sort of label or a name on that. And that kind of sort of level of existence of saying that, well, we can't talk about there being sort of an existence, an independent kind of existence from the side of the object without our sort of mentally designating it, merely being posited by thought and mind. But that does not mean that it is totally non-existent. It exists, conventionally speaking, as a mere designation. And so if we were to sort of search deeper within that basis of designation to try to find something that we can point to that like has that kind of existence as it seems to have, there's nothing that we can find like that. So we have to recognize that all phenomena are dependently originated in this way of not just being dependent upon causes and conditions, but rather when there is a particular basis of designation, something that is sort of like an accumulation, a coming together of things that appears to mind, we then make this like mental labeling, mentally designate that object. And that is the way in which it exists. That existence as a mere mental designation or merely designated by mind is sufficient for existence. So when it has that kind of dependent nature, we are not undermining or completely negating the existence of that thing, but rather it's having some kind of like inherent or real true existence. So when we have like a thought of I, or we think about something pleasant or unpleasant or our enemy or something like that, we have this kind of sense of it existing as it appears to us, as though it had some sort of objective reality from its own side. And on the basis of that, we then generate attachment and aversion and all of these various kinds of afflictions. And so the way in which it actually exists is as merely designated by mind. It is empty of that kind of inherent establishment. And so when we talk about these verses where, like Nagarjuna says, that whatever is dependently originated, that is explained as emptiness, or where it continues to say that that which is dependently designated, that is explained as the middle way. So here, there are these two extremes that we are trying to avoid, a kind of reified existence wherein there is some kind of inherent real true existence. And that is undermined by the fact that things are dependently originated, that they don't have that sort of existence from their own side. But it doesn't negate their existence completely, and that they exist as dependent designations. So this is the kind of middle way. There is no sort of autonomous, real, true existence, but there are things that appear to mind, and they are designated by mind conventionally. And that kind of existence can't be completely negated or undermined.
Oh yeah. Oh, Oya ti indi ko tosi te ko chebachi tongbani shede to kale khabore ko samrutan che rigbale tene che ko yordan o tiri ti mado ti kale khabu du si lela bu chenane tanda hasang se ti lela bu wa hasang kal su zo o tende chebachi umare chebachi namdo maru dorore ti ko mare kaya yela ma che de sho se ti nelu thadu re se gora Tante di ceba yone tene yongo ora Kamalashila da hasang ti ate hasang sene ngazo lame menga zo yin kom zo yin siare kacho se chen yele ma se so ta te ro reja te ro yele si de ne nyamo chada ga ga ti do as chen yele ma se ka sha ka ke sam ma ta te na ti ne tongba ni ko che de senda ribe cheba chi ta na ne nam do ma ro de se gora Tima rese, rikbe cheba chena mato chena yila ba chena tena, ko namdo nyamu kengen de kare chikdo, lo kare samlo kare nolkdo, tin zimba de kare samgudo, tin anshin yore mere ta, ane tin meba sora. Tin sonda ko kar sora, chena yila me cheba digri se tin, shiru ba to namga tabu komsha sigora, tongba se namga thaya se, namga ni kake tongba tu ste sigora, kake samlo matang se. Namga nasiya, baru namga de samta ju amar sem liya sam sem sewa sam liya samlutas. Baru je chen yele ma se se tian tin nelu kombar ani sizili kiri de tarba de sigwara. Sa kote lela broj do ko ta se kan samma ta se te sha ne. O ti ma de te inje meje kakcha de ngön ji de me ba she guru se sangye chum de song do. Chö tam de rangshin je tomba namba yang da ba che so ta o song do. Chokoran tongba mare rangshin ji tongba namba tagu re songudwa samu cheba deba de chira labar cha samu tongba nyela cheba deba de kare lagu re ya shugudwa de sharibu da tomba sanje chomden de dunle shu yora ne tombe chingi lamne ne sharibu chare sili toa chedwa shira ji paru du cheba samu cheba deba de chira labar cha 동반이라 쳐본 데바데 가릴라 그래서라 에 전주 선바스 파워처에서 어제 발레 되기도 삼을 쳐본 데바데 데단 넘버 타와 차데 풍풍가버 데달라 랑신게 동반 넘버야 한다고 쳤다오스 랑외네 동바 샬은 뜻이 되니 좋아 코란 랑외네 추추베 동반 질렀다고 그랬은 거도 랑신게 동반야 한다고 쳤다오스 어때나 실수 동바 차데로데 매매매매스도 मैं से de rangxin ki मैं rawan to मैं tenji debar jo yo se gora tenji debar jo मैं na ni le chumbe da kidi debu nyo da ka ga me ba cha gora o ti ndo ne sanje chumde de shira ni bu ko ta de le sung do chumde de tingi de le sheng de se chumde de to shu ra se ani tingi de le sheng de sanje samba jo pa ba che le so jo le so se o kira de she de pe ya bu so le so se leso regibo te deshin deso kira she tera redase ta ra reso ra te deshin des sida che gitan bashin de shire bar ji ti shin shek ban nam ge che su yerang sanje chumden de ge leso re yabu chon te ra reso bara sanje chumden de shenda ge che su yerang je ne nang do asura ti shin shek ban nam ge che su yerang o se o toni te res song do a ti de san ko ga ju ti Kashyapa tende yorno tongbani ti rikbe sheba shene tongbani komete tongi chamu mare tile chawa mambu yore ti rakba rese sungu yore o tende sunsu yore ta imbache o de chilamni ya
Oh yeah. So when we investigate emptiness, there is difficulty to this. It takes sort of energy. We need to use our investigation and analysis in order to get to an understanding. It's not like this view of Hashang where it's kind of appealing because of its ease to just say, well, the final nature of things, just we can find that by withdrawing our minds from external objects. We just sort of, he explained, oh, my main sort of instructions are meditation. And this meditation involves just being pulled away from, not engaging with objects, whether it's of our five senses or of the mind, because that leads to bad results. When we engage with objects, we have attachment and aversion and give rise to karma and so forth. So this is the sort of view of Hashang, that somehow by just pulling back, being in this kind of meditation of, like they talk about this sort of space-like meditation, or being in this sort of endless consciousness and so forth, all the way up to the peak of samsara, they think that this is liberation and sort of are grasping at that idea of just being free from engagement with objects. And that's actually not the kind of peak, it's not getting out of samsara, it's not liberation, but rather we need to be able to identify the way in which we grasp at things as inherently existent, the problematic way in which our mind is apprehending things. And so again, as it's explained in the Heart Sutra, we have this kind of Shariputra was already sort of a stream enterer at this very high stage, and but he's through the enlightened activities of the Buddha, we see this questioning between him and Chenrezig, who is there meditating on the sort of the profound perfection of wisdom. And so Shariputra has asked, how should they train? And in his response, the great Bodhisattva Chenrezig says that they should see that all phenomena are empty of inherent existence. So it's not as though, when it continues on saying there is no form, no feelings and so forth, that these things are non-existent, but they don't have this kind of inherent existence, this kind of autonomous being established from their own side. It's not in any way negating them as dependent originations in the way that they actually exist. And so here, this kind of back and forth where Shariputra and Chenrezig are discussing the practice of the perfection of wisdom, the Buddha then arises at the end and says, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that, it is just like that. It is the one should practice the perfection of wisdom exactly as you have explained. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. And so it is in this way that through our understanding in the way in which we misperceive things, the way in which we perceive them to have inherent existence, and by identifying that inherent existence and negating it, that we come to this proper kind of level of understanding. So, there are stages of realizing this. We don't immediately get to the point of full understanding, but it is by repeatedly investigating and analyzing that we are able to come to the proper kind of understanding, not just by withdrawing and disengaging from objects.
Well, that sounds right. Oh yeah, that is. Oh yeah, that is awesome. Yeah, that is it. Yeah.
So our time is up for today, so we'll have to stop there.
And thank you so very much for making this special time, Geshe and also Katrina. And next week, Saturday morning, we will return to our regular time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path, and all spiritual friends who practice it have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of Losang's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the three worlds always increase. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayame. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. In the snowy mountain pure land, you're the source of good happiness. Powerful Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezi, may you stay until samsara ends.
Oh yeah, tuche na ani dunja jema jeyong.
그렇지. 뭐지? 자.